What do you think is the most important thing to a correction officer? What is the thing that is foremost his responsibility and he is concerned about? Like every correction officer, this is like their number one concern. Is it searching inmates? Is it preventing riots? Is it defeating? What is it? What do you think is the most first and foremost thing that a correction officer is concerned with? Give up? Okay. And it's so obvious. The first and foremost thing is the count. The count, making sure that you have all your inmates. That is the first and foremost thing in the correction officer's mind. Maintaining the count. A correctional facility, any correctional facility has a total count, whether it's 500, whether it's 5,000, whatever that count is. That is very important to correction, that we have all our inmates. That's why we count constantly. We have at least 3 institutional counts a day, right? At 7 o'clock in the morning, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then at 11 o'clock at night. Those are the institutional searches, institutional counts. But there are counts that go on all during the course of the day. They're so important. So let me just explain how important this is and how much emphasis and detail is taken when it comes to the count. At 7 o'clock, say if I'm a correction officer, I'm on staff, I've been working since 11 o'clock last night, and now it's 7 o'clock in the morning, and somebody's coming to relieve me, and I want to go home, right? I get off at 7 or 7:30. Somebody walks through the door at 7 o'clock and says, hey, I'm here to take your post. The first thing that they are supposed to do once they say hi to me and give me a pound or whatever, they're supposed to take a count. Now, I'm not supposed to tell him what the count is. He's not supposed to ask me what the count is. He can even ask me what the count is, but I will tell him, you go make a count and then you tell me what the count is. This is how important this is, right? So the officer will go and count the inmates. Now, if the inmates are locked in the cell, it's kind of easy because he can just go to each cell and see if there's a person in there, then he can count. If we're working dorms, the inmates will be told to play your beds, go to your beds, and the officer will go around and count each inmate. Try not to get confused, don't count two inmates twice. So once he gets his count, so say if we're in a housing area and the count is 75, right? I got 75 inmates in here. He comes to me and says, I got 74 inmates, right? I know the count is 75. I'm going to tell him, you're wrong. Count again. So now he has to go back again and count and see what he comes up with. Now, after he does his count again, he comes back to me and I'll say, what's your count? And they'll say 75. And then I would say, good. Now we can change posts. Now I can give you the keys. I can give you the rundown of everything that's been happening that you should know that happened last night, and, all the stuff that's happening, the amount of inmates I have out to court or to working or whatever. I can run all that down to you. And once we get an understanding of what the count is, then there's a count slip that we both have to sign. And I will take that count slip on my way out to the control room. And then the control room will calculate everybody's count in the whole jail. And that total count, has to be reflected in the total count. So they'll take all the counts from all the housing areas and all the areas of the jail, and then they will calculate that, and hopefully the count will clear, meaning that everything is fine. The functions of the jail just resume as usual, right? But if the count is off, by one inmate, one person is not accounted for in that jail will come to a screeching halt. Everything will stop. And that is a major issue. Now, it's expensive for that to happen because you have officers that are being relieved and they want to go home. Well, a lot of cases, nobody will be able to go anywhere until we clear this count. That's how important it is. So everybody will be told to make another count. It'll be an announcement. The count is off. Make another count. So everybody would have to make a count to see where this missing inmate is. And hopefully the inmate is in the building somewhere, and somewhere somebody just didn't count them, or they got mixed up on a count slip, or somebody didn't record that the inmate left to go to the visits and they forgot to put it on their running count. And maybe it's something simple like that, right? If it's not, if an inmate is actually missing, now it's even more serious. Like if everybody does a count, the whole institution counts again, and the count is still off by one person. Now it goes into another phase where we have to find out what inmate is missing. Who is he? Who is the inmate that's missing? Right? We know we got, I don't know, 3,000 inmates in this building and one is missing. Which one is missing? Who are we looking for? So now we have to do what is called a pedigree. That means that we have to visually go to each inmate or have inmates go back to their cells or go back to their beds, and we come to each inmate with what is called a locator card. Now, this is a card that follows the inmate to wherever housing area he's assigned to. It comes from the receiving room. When he comes in, there's an office there called movement control that tracks all the inmates, and they issue from the securing order. They take that information and they put it on a locator card with the inmate's booking case number and his picture and his vital information, like the color of his hair, his eyes, his height, his weight, his address, his nationality, his religion, things like that. The reason why we have these cards is because of situations like this. So we can actually pedigree the inmate. So we'll come up to each inmate and say, okay, what's your name? And he'll say, my name is John Smith. Okay, where do you live? I live at 744 Chauncey Street. Okay. What's your mother's name? We'll ask him questions just to confirm that this is the person that's on this card. So once we go around to everybody in the housing area and make sure that everybody's here and we know who's who, at some point it will be discovered which inmate is missing. Now, while this is going on, people are out searching for this missing inmate, right? But once we confirm who he is, now we got a better opportunity to figure out who he is. I mean, where he is. Now, if in our case, when I was working on Rikers Island, usually the inmate is somewhere on the island because there's an island. Where can you go, right? So we're hoping that the inmate is still on the island, like he didn't slip into somebody's trunk of the car and get driven off the island, or he didn't swim off the island. So we're like looking around. So now those of us who thought that we were going home are the ones that, thought they were going home. Now they're in riot gear, and now they have to, what we call, beat the bushes. We have to go out and search the grounds for this missing person. Now we have an idea of who he is, so we're trying to find him. And also at Rikers Island, there's a harbor unit. There's a unit that is manned by officers that has a boat that patrols around the island. So once we say that there's been an escape or an inmate is missing, then the harbor unit has to get into effect. They have to start looking around in the water to see if there's anybody out there, any boats or anything. So it's a big production. It's a big operation. You could imagine what happens, how serious it is if the count is off and the inmate is missing. Most times, like 99.99% of the time, we're going to find this inmate and he's going to be somewhere on the island or in that institution. But in the event that he's not, and there has been an actual escape, that is, very, very serious. and they have a absconding unit that goes out to look for the inmate, right? The inmate that's missing. And one of the things that they do to try to track this inmate down is first you're going to go to his address, right? You're going to go to the address that you have on file for him. But if that, and as well as that, you're going to look at his visit record, because everybody who comes to visit an inmate has to give their identification and be registered. So those are the people that now they're going to go and try to see if he's there with them, or have they seen him, have they heard from him. Usually an inmate will be caught because usually inmates don't really have too many connections outside of the jail to get them away. They're not coming out with a bunch of money, so they're pretty much indigent. They don't have a job out in the world, so they're not earning a lot of money. They're not taking money with them when they leave the facility, so they're not going to go that far. And usually within a couple of days, if the inmate has actually escaped, he will be found. And is it really worth it? I don't think so, because escape is a felony. That's a felony. You can get serious time for just escaping. You can get 7 years for just escaping. You know what I mean? So a lot of inmates don't try it. Some inmates do. So that's the extent of the count. There's 3 institutional counts a day. And aside from the institutional counts, you have counts that are going on constantly, because if you are relieving somebody to just go to meal, just to go to lunch, you have to confirm the count before you relieve them. So if there's 50 inmates that the officer is watching, you have to go and count 50. It's the same process. You don't ask the officer, what is his count? Because you don't want that number to be in your head. You just want to have a fresh look at it. And so you would just go make your count and then come back to the office and say, do you have 50? And the officer would be like, yeah, I got 50. Okay, I'm going to lunch. One time we had an inmate. The count was off. Right? I had the A post, and the B officer was making a count. He was getting relieved, and he had already been through this process with his relief, that they had gone up and down and trying to find this inmate. And so they come to me and on the A post, and they're like, Koonce, because the A post is the one who actually has to fill out the count slip and submit it to the control room, or call the control room. The control room might call you and ask you what's your count. So the A officer is like the administrative officer of that post. So in this particular situation, the count was off. They were missing one guy, and so they've already been through the count 3 or 4 times, and now they come to me and like, Koonce, the count is off. And I'm like, what? And after we talk about it for a while, I say, okay, let me take a count. So I give them the keys, and me and the officer go inside, and we are making this count. And I'm counting, and I'm like, man, I can't find this guy. And see, it's on me too, because I am the A officer, and the A officer is the officer that lets inmates in and out the unit, right? The cell block or the housing area. He's the one that actually has the key to let anybody come and go. So if an inmate is missing, it's probably more on the A officer than it is the B officer, right? So it's concerning to me. I'm like, whoa. I'm looking at my count. I know where all my inmates are. I might have inmates that are working. I might have inmates that are out to visits, inmate that's in the yard, whatever. I can figure out what my count is. I'll have my running count and my total count. And this particular time, the count was off. And we were like, man, I don't believe this. So now we're like, okay, we need to call the captain. We need to call the captain, let him know that the count is off, Either way, they're going to call us anyway, because we can't confirm the count. And the control room is going to ask us what our count is, and we can't tell them. So we have to let them know. The sooner you let them know, the better. But if the inmate is not missing, and you call and say the inmate is missing, and they, find out that he's not, and he's in the housing area, it's going to make you look even worse. Right? So you're like, oh man, the count is off. So what happened, we did call the captain. And the captain is in the same mode as we are. What the heck is going on? Because now if he can't confirm the count, now he's got to call his supervisor, the deputy warden, and let him know. And then it's like, then it's on. Then it's on and popping. Like everything goes into effect, and we gotta go through all of this, and nobody goes home, and it's costing a lot of money because there's a lot of people that are gonna be on overtime trying to find this inmate. So the captain comes in and he's like, "What is going on in here?" And we're like, "Tell him, yo, Cap, we've done the count, man. We've done it like a few times. We cannot find this dude, and he's supposed to be right here in this housing area." And so now the captain is walking up and down, the area looking for this inmate. We're like, man, what is going on? So we're all searching for this one inmate. And I just happened to look in the cell. Now we're looking under the beds, right? We're looking in the cells. We're looking in every common area, the bathrooms, the shower, the day room, everywhere. It's not a lot of places an inmate can be. It's count time. There's nothing really happening. So I just happened to look under a bed. Some inmates, they have their blanket over their bed, and these inmates had the blanket over the bed. And I look under the bed, we're looking under the bed, and we don't see the inmate. So we're going to the next bed because there's like, I think 2 beds in the cell. So we're looking under the other bed, pull up the covers, the blanket that's hanging down over the side of the bed. We don't see the inmate there either. And then we're like almost leaving, and we see the inmate roll under the bed that we just checked. So what this inmate is doing, he's under the bed with the blankets draped over the side of the bed. And when we search under this bed, he rolls to the other bed. And then when we search that bed, he rolls to this bed, and we catch him. And we're like, oh, here he is right here. He's under the bed. And each time we look under his bed, he rolls to the next bed and vice versa. Man, we were so hot with that inmate, but we were so happy that he was playing his game and he was actually in the housing area. Yes. Most inmates, like 99% of the time, you will not have a problem with inmates doing that. You won't have a problem with inmates trying to disrupt your count. If you're doing the count the way it's supposed to be done, most inmates will cooperate with you if they see that you're doing the job the way it's supposed to get done. They don't want to be standing around or stuck in their cells if you're messing up and you're not doing the count correctly. But they will work with you because, like I said, everything stops during the count. So if an inmate is gone, if an inmate has escaped, that means those inmates, the rest of the house, the rest of the jail is going to be on lockdown. Simple as that. Everybody's going to be on lockdown. All the programs going to stop. The feeding is going to stop. Visits are going to stop. Religious services, education, anything that's happening in that jail is stopped. So the inmates don't want that either. They want to continue to do the things that they usually do. They want to stick to their routine as well. So you're going to get cooperation from most inmates most of the time. And if you see somebody that does do what I just described that inmate did, that is a serious infraction, and he can get Bing time for that, meaning that he can be placed in punitive segregation for that. But in this case, where we had this inmate that was rolling from under one bed to the next, did we give him an infraction? Did we write him up? Did we give him Bing time? Nah, we didn't, because we didn't want to formalize a report saying that we got the count wrong because it was doing it. So we didn't want the attention on us. So the captain didn't want to do a report. I didn't want to do a report about it. I didn't want to get pulled on the carpet by the warden. And he's asked me, what are you guys doing back there? You got inmates hiding and you can't find them. And so everything was everything. Everything was cool. So he got away with that one. We had a laugh about it, but in normal circumstances, yeah, he probably would have got infraction. So I just wanted to give y'all that. The most important thing to officers is the count. That's where you make your money, with that count. That count got to be right every time, right? So Thanks for coming by and checking me out. And until next time, as always, peace and stay safe.